This Sunday, the climate crisis.
Brace yourselves for dangerous heat.
The drought we're in is disastrous. Everyone ought to be worried about it.
Rainfall amounts really are staggering.
About everything we own was destroyed.
Water rushing into the streets.
This is the eye wall hitting right now, the strongest winds.
Annual average temperatures in the U.S. could increase anywhere from 2 to 11 degrees.
Two fast-moving firestorms within miles of each other.
You can see how intense the flames are right now.
The Garden of Eden just turned into gates of hell.
The evidence is everywhere.
Back to my place so you can answer yourself.
The science is settled.
It's ridiculous to say it wouldn't be better if the administration in Washington didn't deny science.
But the politics is not.
Climate change is real, and it is urgent problem that we need to bear down on.
It's a snowball, and that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out, very unseasonal. So here, Mr. President, catch this.
This morning we'll report on the challenge of climate change, the science, the damage to our environment, the cost, and the politics. Welcome to Sunday and this special edition of Meet the Press.
From NBC News, the longest-running show in television history, this is a special edition of Meet the Press with Chuck Todd.
Good Sunday morning and a happy New Year's weekend to everyone. This morning we're going to do something that we don't often get to do. Dive in on one topic. It's obviously extraordinarily difficult to do this, as the end of this year has proven in the era of Trump. But we're going to take an in-depth look, regardless of that, at a literally earth-changing subject that doesn't get talked about this thoroughly on television news, at least, climate change. But just as important as what we are going to do this hour is what we're not going to do. We're not going to debate climate change, the existence of it. The earth is getting hotter, and human activity is a major cause, period. We're not going to give time to climate deniers. The science is settled, even if political opinion is not. And we're not going to confuse weather with climate. A heat wave is no more evidence that climate change exists than a blizzard means that it doesn't, unless the blizzard hits Miami. We do have at a crisis that's been ignored for too long.
They say economic impact could be devastating.
Yeah, I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
No, I don't believe it.
But in a new NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, 2/3 of Americans believe action is needed to address global climate change. 45% say the problem is serious enough for immediate action, a record high. Climate-related disasters, from wildfires
We lost a lot.
to more intense storms, extreme rain events, and floods, are already a serious threat and getting worse.
House is flooding, and it's rising way too fast.
I just was in such denial. I didn't put anything up. I didn't grab anything.
I saw the watermark in my basement. It was up in my nose. The drive down here was almost as bad as seeing my place. It's gone.
Glaciers are disappearing. And Arctic ice melt is producing rising sea levels and rewriting global weather patterns. All 5 of the warmest years on record in the Arctic have come since 2014. And these rising temperatures have already cost the U.S. economy.
There's consequences, serious consequences. We're talking about not necessarily whether you and I, have something to eat tonight. We're talking about the survival of the human species over the long term.
This year, a series of climate reports, including one produced by 13 agencies in Mr. Trump's government, issued dire warnings of economic and human catastrophe if there is not immediate action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. But the federal response to the climate crisis has been political paralysis and denial.
We keep hearing that 2014 has been the warmest year on record. I asked the chair, you know what this is? It's a snowball, and that's just from outside here. So it's very, very cold out, very unseasonal. So here, Mr. President, catch this.
While the federal government lags behind, cities and states are attempting to lead their own climate efforts.
We have wind turbines and solar panels.
Georgetown, Texas Mayor Dale Ross voted for Donald Trump. Last year, his city became the first in Texas to convert to 100% renewable energy to power its grid.
What can those knuckleheads in D.C. do to regulate that increases our cost?
Now a growing group of Democrats in Congress, pushed by grassroots progressives who want aggressive climate policies, are calling for a Green New Deal.
This is going to be the great society, the moonshot, the civil rights movement of our generation.
While some Democrats are mindful of the yellow jacket protests in Paris, sparked by anger at a fuel tax, a majority of Americans believe that failing to address climate change will be more economically costly than new regulations designed to prevent global warming. And Democrats eyeing the White House are highlighting an issue once considered a political liability.
Climate change is real, and it is an urgent problem that we need to bear down on it.
Every Democrat running anywhere in America needs to make it a central message because the American people are with us.
Of climate change. Welcome back, Data Download Time. After years of contentious debate on climate change, new polling this year seems to suggest Americans are finally starting to form a consensus on this issue. More people are willing to accept that it's happening and that humans are responsible. But there still is a serious political divide. According to a study from Yale and George Mason University, 70% of Americans say global warming is happening, and 57% believe it's mostly caused by human activities. And in fact, the 66% of people in our latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll who believe climate change is a serious problem that does need to be addressed, that's a 15-point increase since 1999. We're down to just 30% who say we need more research or we shouldn't be concerned. A 13-point drop in that same time period. Now look, this is significant because those feelings about climate change are remarkably uniform, no matter your skin tone or where you live. Over 60% of whites, African Americans, and Hispanics all believe we need to do something about climate change. And more than 50% of those who live in cities, suburbs, and even rural America agree. But if the public has reached a consensus, why hasn't Washington? Well, we see the biggest disagreement on climate change when we look through the prism of political parties. 71% of Democrats say climate change is a serious problem and that we need to take immediate action. A 42-point increase since 1999. 47% of independents also agree, a 22-point jump. But Republican opinion, stagnant on the issue. Only 15% believe climate change is an urgent problem. The exact same number when we first asked this question in 1999. Look, these numbers in particular serve as a reminder that no matter how much the public at large may agree on something, we live in a two-party political system. And the two parties simply do not see eye to eye on whether to even address the issue, let alone how to address it. As long as that's the case, it's hard to see how the public's consensus leads to political action in Washington. When we come...
This science, this idea that science is just absolutely settled, and if you don't believe it's settled, then you're somehow or another a Neanderthal, that is so inappropriate.